Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Other Chemistry YouTubers. My guest tonight is an independent backyard chemist by the name of Poor Man's Chemist, who specializes in making rarely seen chemical compounds with a particular interest in compounds that are considered wildly poisonous that other chemists wouldn't even dare to go near. Poor Man's Chemist, welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So I was wondering if we could start this off by just talking about sort of your background, what led you to become where you are, and your decision to put what you're doing on the internet for all to see.
Sure. Actually, I fell in love with chemistry when I took it in high school. About 2 weeks into the class, I knew that it was what I wanted to do. Always knew I wanted to do a science. It's just that's when I discovered that it was chemistry. It took me a while. Wasn't a traditional college student. I basically got an associate's degree and then was out of school for several years, dealing with osteogenic sarcoma, bone cancer, all of that fun stuff. Then I went back and finished up my bachelor's degree and finished that up in 2007. And ended up getting a divorce in 2014, which led to me moving up here and with a friend of mine. And after several years of doing contract lab jobs, I decided that my life was definitely missing something, that a lot of the magic of chemistry had kind of died because I wasn't doing the kind of chemistry I really wanted to do. I wanted to look and I wanted to see all of the weird shit that I kept reading about in all of these textbooks, especially all the stuff that was like incredibly poisonous. And I look on the internet and nobody's made these things. Nobody will work with them. So it really began with me doing essential oil distillations of herbs. Then that's how I got a distillation train. Then from that, I just started buying more and more glassware and chemicals on eBay. Um, Several years later, here we are.
So you get your glassware and your chemicals predominantly from eBay, is that right?
Yep, that's it. What glassware and chemicals I don't get from eBay, I get either by trading with, people that watch my channel, other YouTubers. Backyard Science 2000. This guy is like a savant at finding hard to find chemicals. This dude, he's also a good IRL friend of mine as well. He can find stuff that is incredibly hard to come by, like lithium aluminum hydride and phosphorus pentachloride. The only thing I haven't seen the guy not been able to find so far is thionyl chloride. So far.
Have you ever considered going to kind of like just one of these mainstream vendors like Flynn or Sigma or, Thermo or anything like that just to, try to order something from them?
My understanding is that they won't sell to the unwashed peasants like me. You have to have an account with them, and you have to have some kind of business address, at least the last time I looked into it. I've seen plenty of things where Sigma is selling chemicals on eBay, which I thought was very weird, where they wouldn't sell it to the general public, which made me question why it was on eBay.
Yeah, what you're saying kind of reminds me of when I was teaching high school. So I used to teach high school chemistry, as most of you probably maybe know. Um, but I wanted to do this particular demonstration called the barking dog reaction, which involves using carbon disulfide in the presence of either nitric or nitrous oxide in a large tube. You remove one end of it, set fire to it, and it goes whoa. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
Oh, very much so.
yeah, so I wanted to order some carbon disulfide, and I was actually surprised at how easy it was. I think it was Flynn Scientific. I just ordered it, and I was like, really? Like, you don't need anything else other than like my name and the address to deliver it to in order to order this stuff? Because it's, as you know, carbon disulfide is pretty dangerous stuff. It's very volatile.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there was like no questions asked. I just ordered it online and they shipped it over and I just put it in the
Is that to
fridge.
your house or to the school?
It was to the school. It was to the school. So
That's
maybe,
see, I think that's what it is. If you have a business address of some kind, yeah, then from what I understand, it's just a matter of going through the steps to get, the account. But if you're doing a YouTube where and your lab is out of your backyard like me, even though I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry, they don't care. they,
yeah.
they, they, yeah, they're not going to sell chemicals to the peasants like me, and their stuff is so fucking overpriced. Sorry, I don't.
No, you're
But
good.
it is. It totally is. I mean, their stuff is. I mean, you look at it, and it's like a beaker is like $20. There's no way I could afford to buy their stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I particularly like lithium aluminum hydride is one that's like really hard to get. Even if you're like in a business, like I'm pretty sure that it's illegal to ship it by air. So anytime you order lithium aluminum hydride, like it has to be shipped freight, which makes it like even more expensive and longer lead times and all that kind of stuff.
Well, my understanding is that like most hazmat materials have to be shipped ground when the option exists. I sold chemicals like some I would buy chemicals in large containers and then sell some of the surplus on eBay. I did that for a few months. If you go back in my channel's history, you can see what stuff on the videos about it. And that was the only way they would let me send anything, like using doing it through eBay's system where I would get a discount on the postage, is that it had to be sent by ground. Even for innocuous stuff like potassium borohydride
Hmm.
had to be go on ground. I mean, what's potassium borohydride gonna do? It's give off some hydrogen, maybe okay, but I mean, I can think of far worse things.
So tell me about what goes into, as far as the decision making that goes into choosing an experiment or a synthesis that you want to perform.
Well, the number one thing that I usually think of is it something that anybody else has done, and if they have they done it recently, and have a lot of people done it? I can't tell you the number of preps that I've passed on because somebody else has done it or it's been done to death. I get asked by people to do preps where it's like, but there's already videos out there of people doing it, like nitric acid, or bromine. I did a video on making elemental bromine, and this is right back at the start of my channel. Even back then, it did not get a lot of attention because it's been done. Is the compound weird? And is it a challenge to try to make it? A lot of times, I really like doing stuff off of the Atom Mystery website, atommystery.com, because they don't give you much more than just this compound can exist. Like, this and this is used to make this. Usually, you have like a sentence or two if you're lucky to work off of. And so it's a challenge. I want to challenge myself with the preps that I do because I'm on this wild and amazing exploration of the rest of the periodic table. See, most of the stuff that I focused on was organic chemistry, and biochem. I never really messed too much with inorganic chem. So, I get to try out, explore all of the weird elements that I never got to work with before. And lastly, is it poisonous or radioactive? Because whereas some, like, people that do chemistry channels, they get off on stuff that goes boom. Not me, man. I mean, that's cool. Don't get me wrong. I love a good boom as much as the next guy. I want the stuff that is wildly poisonous because it's like, it's like playing God, man. Like the only thing between you and certain death is a layer of glass. That's like sex with the universe, man. It's freaking incredible. God, it's so awesome. And I mean, like, just by making like what, a handful of thallium compounds, I've suddenly become the guy that's done more chemistry with that element than anyone else on a platform of 2.5 billion people. I think 2.3 on YouTube. Nobody. And it's not going to jump out of the beaker and bite you. But hey, that's okay. More stuff for me to do.
Yeah, I hear you. On some level, I can kind of relate to that thrill of like working with something dangerous. Like I used to work for this startup defense contractor, and we were making these like solid composite propellants. It was basically like a flammable polymer matrix, and then you'd have like these aluminum nanoparticles embedded
Oh,
within
that's
it.
so cool.
Yeah, and those finished products, like the nanoparticles in surrounded by this polymer, that was pretty stable. Like we were able to ship that FedEx no problem. But sort of the precursors and intermediates that it would take to make that material were very very dangerous to the point where I've started many fires accidentally. Just from stuff something coming into contact with the air, talking about pyrophoric materials. You make something new in your little inert atmospheric glove box. You have no idea what the properties are, let alone the safety
Right.
aspects of it. And then you go to take it out, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you open that door, boom, you know, it just goes up like crazy. It's like, oh my goodness. So, but I definitely understand that. Working with something dangerous, it is kind of something that you can wear with pride. Like yeah, I'm doing something badass.
Right? Yeah, exactly, man. And it's really, I mean, the stuff that I'm working with isn't really that bad. I mean, uranium isn't that bad. Thallium is really not that bad. I mean, the elements that actually make me nervous are ones like osmium. Because osmium will readily form the tetroxide. It will do it in a lot of different circumstances. And osmium tetroxide is no joke. It will absolutely fuck you up. Um, Ruthenium tetroxide is another one that you kind of got to keep your eye on that one too. But I mean, thallium, if you get a little bit of it on you, yes, be aware of your skin. If you get it on you, go wash it off. I've gotten teeny tiny little bits of thallium compounds on my skin, and being very aware of what's going on, I just go and I wash them off and go on with my day. Everything's been fine. Um, you know, you shouldn't trust gloves anyway with stuff like that because if it'll go through skin, is it going through a glove? I mean, I don't know. So as soon as my gloves get dirty, I change them. And I've never had a problem.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the glove too, because like nitrile gloves are great for like dexterity, but they're not necessarily like aqua regia will chew right through a nitrile glove, and then you
Hmm.
can you can put on a pair of butyl gloves and that might provide a degree of more protection, but now all of a sudden you've lost your dexterity. Good luck picking up a 25 milliliter beaker or tiny little flask
Right?
while you're wearing a butyl glove. Like ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Right?
And so
Exactly.
you kind of have to strike that balance between safety and speed and just comfort and just doability. Safety is not always the number one determinant. I mean, it is probably the most important, but like it's not always the sole determinant in how you perform a particular experiment as far as PPE goes.
Well, I mean, take elemental bromine, for example. I mean, that will, if you get it, if you are wearing nitrile gloves and you get elemental bromine on it, you will immediately feel the heat. It's to the point where I just don't wear gloves at all, and I just keep a bucket of sodium thiosulfate solution right there. And I mean, if I get it on me, boom, hands in the bucket, which of course immediately neutralizes it by converting it to bromide. And so problem solved. Um, I'm also exceptionally careful when I work with it, but I mean that works better. I think I don't know. For me, I just in my personal choice, I think that's a better way to go. Besides, who knows how long that nitrile glove is going to keep you safe? There are some things where I do insist on working with it though, and that's stuff like some of the mercury salts, where they are sufficiently molecular in nature that I do actually kind of worry about them a little bit. There are a couple of other things too. Some of the arsenic salts are not, I don't know. I can't find clear data one way or the other. So there are definitely those cases where that kind of stuff is called for. But there are other cases where, eh, I mean, having worked with bromine for almost 2 years now, I've found that a bucket of thiosulfate is enough. Just my opinion. Not saying don't use the PPE, kids, do what the teacher
Yeah.
tells you.
Yeah, PPE is really like the last line of defense. I mean, you're like the thing that protects you more is just of having a better understanding with what you're working with, having a plan for what you're going to do with it before you even step into the lab, or in your case, out in your backyard,
Yep.
and just doing, just thinking about what you're doing, just being in the moment, being mindful of what you're doing, being careful. Probably going to be fine with or without PPE, but I hear you. Like you can't just, yeah, kids, just wear the PPE.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is one thing that does concern me is, I know I can make some things look easy, and I hope that people don't think that it's a giant joke. It does get overblown a lot, though, in school and in various workplaces, where in a lot of cases you get what I call the cult of safety, where safety, it's not about what's physically necessary. It's about not getting sued. And the problem with that is you have a lot of people that will see all of the safety protocols that are instituted in a place. They can see that some of them are just absolutely not necessary, so they may think other ones aren't strictly necessary either, when in fact they are.
Yeah, I mean, I always say like the best way to have people follow your rule is to make sure that the rule is sensible.
Right, exactly. um I mean, but again, I don't want to discourage people from using PPE. I mean, if you're never sure, if you're unsure, default go with, default on the side of using it, because, if you don't need it, great, who cares? But if it turns out that you did, then, or you'll be glad that you had it. And a lot of it too on my channel comes down to, this is me making a personal choice for myself. I'm not necessarily saying do things the way I do. It's just like when I share my opinions on things, I'm not expecting the whole world to agree with me. I'm just sharing my views. That's all.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting aspect of your content is that prior to a video about some chemical synthesis, you'll have your take on a particular commonly discussed socio political issue. So it's interesting to see you kind of weave them in, and it's funny because I actually read a comment on one of your recent videos where somebody was asking you, "Hey, can you like edit this video to exclude all of the profanity and send it to me?" And basically, your response was like, "No, it's a package deal. Like you don't get parts of me. You either get all of it or nothing, right?"
Exactly. That's basically what it is. I mean, with the profanity thing now, there are several reasons for that. I mean, number one, I don't want YouTube running ads on my content. And the only way to stop it is to put profanity in your videos. You've got to, drop, be liberal with your use of fucks, man, unless you want YouTube to run ads on it. It's the only way to stop them. Otherwise, I'd be like, sure, whatever. But I'm not going to make a single penny for YouTube because I hate them. Um, and I mean, 95% of my content is nothing, it's all chemistry. There is that little bit, every now and again, there'll be that community post. There'll be the 7 seconds of text. Occasionally, rarely, I will make a video, an entire video calling out something that I think is needing to be addressed, but mostly it's chemistry. It always cracks me up when I get a comment, well, this is a chemistry channel. Well, this is a PMC channel, and 95% of that is chemistry. 5% is other, and it's the way it's always been. Nothing has changed. This is the way it's always been since day one.
Yeah, I would hope that somebody who opposes you politically could. I mean, this is like hope in one hand, shit in the other, see which one fills up first type thing. But I would hope that somebody could, who opposes you politically, could just sort of see past that and just extract whatever value they can from your content, chemistry wise. I mean, take me for instance. Like I'll listen to the Beatles even though John Lennon was like a rampant commie. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't like I can still get past John Lennon's ridiculous politics, and still enjoy his music. I don't understand why, or I wouldn't imagine why people wouldn't be able to take the same approach with your content.
Well, they do for the most part. I mean, I've in my latest community post where I was just antagonizing YouTube, somebody commented, I disagree with you, but I still like you. Hey, that's fair enough. That's totally fine. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. In fact, if somebody's got counterpoints, if I'm wrong, tell me how, show me. I am totally open to being corrected. I don't want to be right, I want to be correct. So if I am in error, I am 100% open to could change my mind. Show me the receipts, show me what you got, or let's have a conversation. Because I think we should, these days it seems like everybody wants to tear down the possibility of different sides of things getting together and having a reasonable, rational conversation. And that's what I would like to have. There's only a few people that get so bent out of shape that they become truly obnoxious. And some of them, I was just talking with another small content creator today. A guy runs the PBN32 channel. And we agreed, like, some of them are bots, some of them are clearly bots. So, there's what can you do? You stay true to yourself and you soldier on.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And if anybody wants to know what we're talking about, you can just click one of the links below to follow Poor Man's Chemist. Another thing I want to talk about is the fact that you have a presence on various alt tech platforms. Talk about which alt tech platforms you're on and why you chose them.
Actually, I'm on BitChute and I'm on Odyssey. And the reason that I chose to do this is because the writing was on the wall years ago that YouTube was going to become ever more draconian in their censorship. There are also some other content creators that I really do enjoy listening to, like Sticks Hexenhammer. He talks a lot about internet censorship. And he's always pushing alt tech, or like I think he likes to call it new tech now. And I really liked what he had to say. I thought what he said made sense. YouTube was not getting better. It's not going to stay the same. It's not going to get better. It's just going to continue to get worse and worse. We're seeing Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. YouTube is not as bad as Twitter and Facebook, but they're all going in the same general direction. Also, we all in the chemistry community, we all saw where YouTube was coming after bigger chemistry channels only just a few years ago. ChemPlayer. I think that everybody likes ChemPlayer. Got taken down. So it's only going to get worse over time. So you have to have a presence on these alt tech platforms. After the January unpleasantness, they really started surging with growth because you had so much big tech censorship. Um, I'm really glad that I got in on them as early as I did. This way, if YouTube ever decides to nuke my channel, so what? My audience has been getting told now for over a year and a half where they can go find me on these other platforms, and the people that want to see me will come on over there to see me. I just broke 1,000 subscribers on BitChute the other day, which on BitChute, that's no mean feat. I worked for a long time in order to do that. Um, and the more YouTube turns itself into MySpace internet TV, the more people will be fleeing it onto these other platforms where they can get the edgy content that made YouTube fun in the first fucking place. I get so many people that'll say, well, these platforms are alt right. They have the exact same stuff on them that was on YouTube less than 10 years ago. Odyssey especially is all about making itself the new YouTube. So I really think these platforms are going to see a lot of growth. The sky seems to be the limit for them. They're picking up new users all the time. And I think that if you have a chemistry channel, you're a fool if you're not on alt tech at this point. No offense, brother. I don't know where you got your,
No,
but I mean,
no, you're right. You're
it's
right, dude. You're totally right, man. I am a fool for not being on those platforms one moment longer. It's just, everybody has that thing at the bottom of their to-do list
oh,
that,
I
it's like,
understand. I
I
understand.
know I need to get around to this, but it just doesn't get done. And right
But
now I'm just,
your content is not as risky as mine is, dude. I intentionally, I get off on kicking the YouTube's hornet's nest. Okay. So, it's a little more imperative for me to have across, presence across platforms. Your content is much more,
uh,
professional.
yeah, it's a
I
little
think
more
that's
of
the
an
word I'm looking for.
it's a little more vanilla, I guess you could say is a good
Right.
term for it. But
So,
I'm not completely opposed to talking about something potentially controversial. Like for instance, I used to do these live streams from my car, and I would just answer questions from no matter what they were about. I would be most ecstatic when they were related to chemistry, but I would answer just any question. And someone was basically talking about like, hey, are you glad that you got out of public school teaching before COVID? I'm like, well, I'm just glad I got out at all. Public education is dog shit. But and then I talked about like teachers not wanting to go back to work, and that basically they not all teachers. I'm just generalizing here because I know a lot of good ones too, but a lot of these teachers were kind of shooting themselves in the foot because they were basically proclaiming that they are less essential than a bag boy at a grocery store. you know?
yeah.
And I was saying all these things, and most of it was actually like most of the engagement that I got was actually supportive. Like people agreed with me, but there were some people who disagreed, which is fine. And but yeah, I mean, but for the most part, yeah, I try to be just stick to the chemistry. Anything else is kind of a distraction. So like lately, my live streams have been like targeted on specific topics. Like last night, I just did one on aqueous ionic equilibrium. You're talking about buffers, and eventually going to be talking about titrations and solubility equilibrium and stuff like that. So yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty tame. I kind of keep my politics to myself, but I
Nothing
could,
wrong with that at all.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I would not encourage anybody to do what I do. I do what I do because I enjoy doing it. It's just because that's what I want to do. I mean, I would not. I certainly would not hope that anybody would think that I would want other channels to do it or new creators just starting out to do it. This is just me being me. I could say Poor Man's Chemist is a persona. Sure, whatever. No, it's pretty much just me. And besides, man, your channel has it appeals to a different audience. It's the same, but it's different. There is plenty of room in the world for something that is much more well done, looks much more polished than what I do. And there's room in the world for more edgy chemistry from some crazy ass redneck in his backyard.
I'm actually like kind of jealous, man. I kind of like wish I could just, exist in your existence for just a day or two because like just the stuff that you do. And I guess there's really nothing stopping me. I could do that similar kind of stuff, but I think most importantly, I really like the how you've been able to cultivate an audience of people who are actually like truly interested in chemistry. And I think because I've read some of your comments, and people are trying to do their own, they have their own home labs and things like that, and that's really something that I think would be like a good thing for me to do in the future. Like maybe do at least some of my own demonstrations. I've sort of played around with the idea of doing that. I guess when I
Yeah,
was
definitely.
I played with sulfur hexafluoride. It's kind of sad, but my most viewed video was me like playing with sulfur hexafluoride and messing with people at like drive-throughs of fast food restaurants with it. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's epic, man. I love that. That's awesome.
yeah. So let me ask you this: like, what are the biggest challenges that you have when it comes to running your experiments? Because I imagine that you're limited in your resources to the point where you're not just going to go out and buy like your own UV vis spectrophotometer or anything like that.
If
So
only.
yeah, so how do you get around that, and what are the sources of resources other than what you've already like? What's the source of, if you don't mind me asking, like funding? Like, do you have crowdfunding or anything like that to procure uh, bigger and better equipment?
Well, mostly the funding comes from donations and my meager paycheck. I always overspend on the lab, but it's a labor of love. So I really enjoy doing it. So I don't mind doing that. And everything else is supported by the donations from my audience because I would much rather be owned by my audience and live and die by whether they like my content or not than anyone else. The biggest hurdle right now is inert gas. If I had a cylinder of an inert gas, just argon or even nitrogen, it doesn't even have to be dry. Oh my God, the amount of things that I could do would just explode. Like I was just before we started this, I was looking back through my notes, um, and I was looking at a Jones reductor experiment that I wanted to do, converting either uranium 6 into uranium 3, or maybe make chromium 2 or something like that. And I know it's going to react with oxygen in the air, and I'm sitting there looking at it like, okay, if I try this, am I going to get this damn species at all, or is it just going to immediately fucking reoxidize again? So I mean, inert gas is the number one problem. um Outside of that, I would say glassware, probably glassware. Chemicals, I collect so many of them and I get so many of them from, like, Backyard Science 2000 will send me some in exchange for me using them in advertising, on my channel for him. So I get a lot of them that way. Sometimes numerous viewers just send me stuff or just trade with me. Like the guy that just sent me this dirt it's supposed to have mercuric sulfide in it. I don't know. It's red dirt. It's very heavy. But it'll be an interesting experiment to see if I can detect it in there and extract it. But that's usually how it works. Usually it's all done from with stuff from the audience. I very much, this is why I go out of my way to answer. I try to give a reply to every single comment I get, no matter what. Um, because if somebody took
I lost your audio for a second there.
Oh,
Oh, I
how
can hear
about
it now.
now?
Yep, I can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead. Sorry about that.
Sorry. It's okay. That was basically it.
So inert gas and glassware. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't
Yep.
realize because they've never actually like looked on any glassware website like ChemGlass or something, just to look at especially how expensive anything with a standard taper ground glass joint is, and these things are extremely expensive. Like even just like a
Yes.
250 milliliter three neck round bottom flask with all 24 40 necks. That's like hundreds of dollars, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, 250 mil, you said?
Yeah, like a
Oh,
250 mil with like 24 to 40 necks, like all ground glass.
usually you can get those for like on eBay for, I want to say, less than $20.
What? I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I didn't.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't look on eBay enough. I've looked at places like ChemGlass and
There's eBay, Etsy. I've heard some people say that you can find stuff on Etsy and Bonanza, and I've had a couple people talk about Alibaba, but I've always used eBay. I mean, you're looking for glassware, you just type it in the search bar and go there. That's where all my distillation columns, my boiling flasks, um, I mean, just a whole huge laundry list of things all came off of there because it's the only place where I can find it where it's cheap and is of reasonable quality.
are
So,
you also very conservative in your, like, do you reclaim your solvents? Like, let's say you distill, you're trying to just concentrate something down, purify it, dry it out. Do you try to like reclaim what was in the receiving flask to use it for a solvent in another process later on?
it depends on the solvent. Stuff like DCM, yes, I'm always try to be as careful to reclaim as much DCM as possible.
That's
Also
dichloro.
toluene.
That's dichloromethane for
Dichloromethane.
those who, or methylene chloride. You might know it by that name. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, it's okay. Other than that, not so much. If I know, like, if I have just a solution of a simple salt, I will recycle things like cesium and bromide, and I always recycle iodide. And I recycle all of the heavy metals so that I don't have to lose them. In fact, the only elements I really can't recycle are ones like arsenic because I still can't find a pathway from my arsenic waste to elemental arsenic that does not involve the possibility of creating arsine somewhere along the way. So I want to avoid that.
When you consider, let's say, like the pie chart of every origin or source of your knowledge of chemistry as it currently exists, where would like education versus your independent work sort of stack up within that pie chart?
Wow, that's a hard question. I mean, my education has laid the groundwork for all of this. Of course, all everything that I learned in school, but I have learned more practical technique, more useful tricks in the lab in the last couple of years that I've been doing this lab at home than I ever did at school or any job. It's been phenomenal. They just I have such a deeper understanding of the periodic table now, a deeper understanding of chemistry than I could have ever had if I didn't do this. It's sometimes when I stop and I look back at where I was and how far I've come, it blows me away. I think that they are both very vital aspects. The education, though, like the formal education, is crucial, but so is the work on your own, and you have to be free to explore a little bit in that work too. Like I could never have told you how to make nitric acid until I got my own lab. I mean, yeah, sure. Okay, I could have looked it up, in a book and shown you the equation, but I've never gone into the lab and done it before. Or elemental bromine. I'd never even seen bromine. I'd certainly never worked with it, or hydrobromic acid, or any one of 10,000 other things.
Yeah, there's definitely like a much like it takes like doing work on your own, like actually applying the knowledge and trying to create knowledge. It just takes your understanding and your appreciation of chemistry to such another level. And this is kind of the thing that I always tell students, chemistry students who ask me for advice, like, hey, you know what? I'm in college for the next 4 years. Like what, what's the best way to spend my time here? It's like get in the lab and start doing undergraduate research. Like just start it
Yep,
right now. Like as soon as you are done with this call, like as soon as you hang up, just go into that lab and just get work, start working on some experiments. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
talk to some grad students, pick their brains when it comes to advanced laboratory techniques. Get your name on a publication if you can. That looks great for future employers or principal investigators or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, there's something else I was going to say, but I lost my train of thought. Hang on. Oh, and the
That's
other thing
okay.
that's it just came back to me. The other thing that's important about doing your own research is that you can actually work with more specialized, more advanced, more expensive equipment. Like, if you're doing research under the direction of some professor, you're going to be able to work with stuff that you wouldn't be able to work with, just in the lab component of whatever lecture you're taking, doing some proven synthesis that has a guaranteed uh, reasonable outcome. You'll get to work with like a glove box. Maybe like you're not going to see a lab that has like a class set of of glove boxes for like the lab
Right.
component of a lecture. So you get to work with more advanced equipment, and you get to sort of step into the like out of your comfort zone and into this nebulous world where there's no lab report that you're following. There's no procedure that is being fed to you. You're writing the book. You're creating that, and yeah, it's a much bigger challenge and also much more rewarding when you actually are successful synthesizing your target compound, or getting your purification just right, or whatever you're trying to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's ecstatic. Oh my God. Every time something works. And again, especially because I try to challenge myself with my preps. When something works, It is absolutely amazing. And like you were talking about with research, there is no high like getting high on discovery. It is the best way to go. And there's no withdrawal. So it's perfect.
Yeah, but I will say this though, like the life of a scientist is not for everybody. It's not for the faint of
Oh,
heart, and you have to be okay with failure. You have to be like comfortable with failing over and over and over again, and then once you finally hit that one little success, uh, needs to be enough to carry you through the thousands of failures that will inevitably follow.
yep.
And you have to look at it a different way. You have to be really good with your record keeping because it's not failure if you have a well documented example of something that didn't achieve the desired results. Right? You may not figure out
Right.
what the answer is, but you figured out what the answer isn't, and that gets you just a little bit closer to figuring it out. So yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on people's personality type. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't recommend just anybody study chemistry. Like at least not major in it. Like only major in it if you kind of have that personality that's not just compatible with failure, but also compatible with kind of you know a harsh work environment. Loud fume hoods, harsh fluorescent lighting. I mean, it's not the same as like roofing in July or anything, but it's not a cushy office job either. Um,
That's true. That's true. I mean, and now there is a small amount of risk that it comes with it too, even in the best labs. I mean, you're always going to be dealing with more risk being in there than somebody that's not.
That's true. That's true. And personally, like the risk, I mean, that's kind of something we already talked about how it's fun to work with things that are dangerous. But
Mhm.
the other aspect of it is, sitting is like the new smoking, So by working in a lab and like building an apparatus with your hands and like lifting these, 5-gallon containers of DCM, which has a density of 1.33 grams per milliliter, much heavier than water, having like two 5-gallon containers of DCM and just carrying them around and all that kind of stuff. Like I'd much rather be doing that than working at a desk job, even though I could probably be making a hell of a lot more money than I make right now at a desk job. I like the fact that my stand to sit ratio at work is like 80/20.
Right. I love that. That is great. Sitting is the new smoking. That is fantastic.
Yeah, I heard it from somewhere. I didn't originally come up with that. I have to be honest.
No, that I've always maintained that. I see. I was the fat nerd with glasses when I was a kid in school, and the only way that I finally lost the weight was when I was 18. I just started exercising more and eating less. And that was really all it took. Just doing that consistently over 3 months, I dropped 50 pounds. Never looked back. I don't know. I mean, it seemed pretty straightforward, really.
Yeah, I know people like to overcomplicate that kind of stuff. Like, oh, I'm gonna starve myself for this. It's like I'm only gonna eat that.
Yes.
It's like just calories in, calories out, and go outside. Take a walk.
Yeah.
The best thing
Go.
about. Go ahead.
I was going to say, go hiking, go swimming, go do anything. Just get up and move around. Don't sit there on your ass. Be on your feet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and I know some of them, although I'm not going to drop any names, that are never more than maybe 50 steps away from their car at any given time.
Yeah, I think we all know those people.
Yeah, and I think especially when you see things like COVID and stuff like that, it's like it kind of just um, opens the lid on the unhealthy habits and unhealthy lifestyle that people have. I think it's something about. I mean, don't quote me anybody on the stats, but I think I remember it being a pretty high number, something like 2/3 or maybe even higher percentage of healthcare or health related problems are due to lifestyle related things like choices that people
Oh,
make.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Obesity is one of the number one killers. I mean, it blows COVID and HIV, well, AIDS. I mean, completely out of the water. Um, I don't know. I don't have any facts or figures, but I mean, how does smoking rank up to obesity? I mean, which one is more deadly? We have people that are, they consume copious amounts of sugar water. They're constantly eating stuff. The stuff that they're eating is not the best stuff in the world. I mean, It seems pretty obvious what the end result is going to be. Humans did not evolve to just sit around all day doing nothing or sitting at a desk. Humans evolved to be out, on their feet, constantly having to move. We're just not designed for being this sedentary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think heart disease is the leading killer, followed by cancer, and that
I
cancer
would,
encompasses not just lung cancer, but all types of cancer. So, yeah, I mean, obesity is like a big, one of the like the leading causes of heart disease, and then smoking is like one of the leading causes of cancer. But yeah, I mean, heart disease is is the number one killer. So yeah, if
yeah.
people just had more active lifestyles, then a lot more people would survive.
What blows my mind is that they had months and months and months in some places of just sitting around in their house doing nothing. I mean, how hard is it to go in your yard and walk in circles? I hear so many people say, well, my gym's closed. You can't do exercises at home? Really? I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, you can swing
These
it.
are some,
You can swing a kettlebell around. I mean, I got a couple of kettlebells, and they're like cast iron, so they're not. They're never going to go bad. They're never going to malfunction like a machine with cables on it might. And yeah, I
right.
mean, you can get a workout that'll knock your socks off just with like a 35-pound kettlebell or lighter.
Right. I mean, people are willing to stay at home for months on end and, tank the fucking economy because they're so concerned about their lives and their health. Well, then why not work on the other thing that is another leading, a massive killer of people and, get, your obesity levels down, get your weight down or get your cardiovascular system in better shape. I mean, things like that. I think that a lot of people instead, just kind of vegged out on the TV.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I mean, I'm really in a fortunate position that my job was never deemed non-essential. I never stopped going to work. I've been working throughout, the entire time. Not only have I been working, but I've been getting like bonuses, like thank you for, like for working during a pandemic. And I'm like, shit, like thank you just for not shutting my ass down. you know,
Right?
you don't have to.
Exactly.
You don't have to pay me more. You just, I mean, the pay that we agreed upon is fine. Just please don't toss my job. I kind of need it. I moved out. I moved all the way up here to South Carolina for my job. So uh, yeah, it's definitely a scary time. But I think like just trying to think of what started us on this. Yeah, we were talking about just like the life of a chemist, like what you can expect. A lot of failure and a lot of maybe not like high intensity workouts, but definitely like more standing, more being on your feet. You're working with your hands in that fume hood, building your apparatus, or in case you're, or in your case, your backyard. And yeah, I like it. I honestly like it.
Me too. I love it. I mean, I can't think of anything I'd rather do. A bad day in my lab is better than a good day most other places. Um, I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be. I mean, if I won the lottery, I would just build a better lab. That's all I would do. Just buy a piece of land and build a better lab. What the hell else do I want in life?
What would be the what would be the first piece of equipment that you buy with your lottery winnings?
Oh, an HPLC probably. Well, since I've won the lottery, fuck, I'll go for a UPLC with MS detector because why not? Something like that, something that I would definitely be able to get a lot of use out of. I mean, if I won like the jackpot and I can go down my little shopping list, there'd be X-ray spec, yeah, X-ray fluorescence spectrometer, gamma ray spectrometer, spectrophotometer, UV vis, everything.
Yeah, I think that one of the most costly ones are like microscopes, like TEM, SEM, TEM, transmission electron microscopy. For those of you who don't know, is particularly crazy because in order for the microscope to work properly, there has to be like the right level of sound in the room. So like when you go in the TEM room, you'll see like sound absorbers all over the place because the instrument is like very, very sensitive. And even just the preparation of like a TEM sample, like on a microtome or something like that, is very difficult to do. And the money that they charge to use, like the money that people who have transmission electron microscopes that they charge by the hour to use them is crazy. It's like hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour, and most of that time is spent
Wow.
prepping the sample and not even imaging it. And another instrument that I saw recently, actually, at my current job, there's two sites in the city where I work, and I work at the west side. There's another one at the east, so I actually worked at east for about a week, and they have like a $500,000 NMR spectrometer there, and
Oh,
that thing
nice.
is crazy.
Nice.
Like they have it cooling with like this liquid helium that's surrounded by like a liquid nitrogen jacket, and they have that like where you put the sample in, and you just kind of like it's like floating up there on like the pressure just keeps it up, and then you click you click on the button to drop the sample in, and it just drops right in. And yeah, it's really impressive. Like some of the equipment that I've seen. I've seen like 100-liter reactors, overhead stirring, jacketed, all that stuff. It is pretty cool to see all this stuff.
Right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff where, if you had like just ridiculous amounts of money, it would be so cool to have something like that. I don't even know what I'd make with it, but by God, I would want to have it anyway, just because. I'll find something to use it for.
Yeah, that'd be funny if you just had like just your backyard, and then like that tent thing where you keep your chemicals, and then like just like some really expensive shit just sitting right next
Oh
to
my
it.
God. That's so funny. Just open up that shed and it's in there. That'd be hilarious.
Oh my
Shit, with the
god.
humidity up here, man, it would rust in like a week. It's so bad because I'm in South Carolina too, and I'm over
Oh,
up in the upstate over in Anderson County, and the rain and the humidity is just unbelievable, man. It rains here all the damn time, and yeah, I have to, because I store a lot of chemicals in like jars, either just old jelly jars or mason jars, because they work. If nothing in them is corrosive, they work. And I have to replace those lids like every 9 months because they start to rust. It's ridiculous, man. I run a dehumidifier in that shed. They still do it. Oh my God, I can't get it to stop.
are you in a flood zone? Like, does your backyard flood a lot when you get a big rain?
No. No, we're on top of a hill here. I know you couldn't tell. You can't tell from like what you've seen in the videos, but so there's the shed and there's that carport canopy, and if you were to go back into the woods and go way back there, you would find out that it drops off into it's actually the side of a very big hill, and then it kind of bottoms out there where it drains into a creek. So we're not in danger of having to deal with flooding here, but still, at a lot of my videos, you can see where I've dug drainage channels in the ground, like around the shed and around that carport canopy that I use a lot. And that's just to channel away rainwater. I think some people get the wrong idea where they think I'm dumping chemical waste in that. No, I have dust blowing up out of them. But that's just all to channel away rainwater because we get a lot of it.
All right, so we had technical difficulties for just a moment there, but it looks like we are back. One question I wanted to ask you was, could you describe your worst accident? What was the nature of it, and what was the outcome of your worst accident?
The worst accident was where I did something very stupid with a pyro mix. Occasionally, I will just mix together oxidizers and fuels and light them off and watch them burn and make big clouds of smoke. Lately, here, I don't do it so much because it's kind of expensive to do that, but I had a mix that wouldn't really burn. And so my dumbass went and mixed a little potassium chlorate with it and lit it off. And boy, it just went off all at once, just poof. And it didn't all combust. So I had potassium chromate, which is one of the oxidizers I had used, thrown up in my face. It was like somebody basically slid open a window into the sun right in front of me and then closed it again in just an instant. My face was all red from the radiant heat. My lips got all blistered and chapped. My thumb, because I was holding it out in that direction, I got some real good second degree burns on the tip of my thumb. It's still the feeling still isn't quite right in it.
Oh man.
I thought I had set my beard on fire. I was like, I threw myself down into the mud, and it's winter, so everything's freezing cold, and I'm like rolling around, like, oh fucking hell, god damn it! And I run inside, and I'm like, my roommate's like, what's going on? And I don't want to freak him out too much, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, gotta get this shit off of me. Holy shit. I don't know how the hell I didn't set my beard on fire. There was little particles had burned little holes like into my glasses and shit. So I mean, that's a good illustration of why PPE is necessary, because otherwise that would have gone right into my eyeball and I would have been in the emergency room. As it was, I just used some Neosporin on stuff and took a shower to decontaminate, and I was fine. Humbled, but fine.
Wow, that tops my worst accident. My worst accident had more of like an emotional, psychological toll, but I wasn't actually physically harmed. Can I tell you what happened?
Yeah, please, please.
So basically, I used to work for this startup defense contractor, and I had this. I basically wiped a surface clean with one of those like Kimberly Clark Kim wipes, and it had this Kim wipe had some water reactive material on it, and I threw it in the garbage because I was in a hurry, which I think is kind of the origin of most laboratory accidents, is just working too fast and not slowing down.
Yep,
So
agreed.
instead of like deactivating it in a large quantity of water to just quench it, I just threw it in the garbage, and the garbage had some water droplets in there and some
Ooh,
paper and some cardboard, and so the water reacting with the water reactive material kind of created the spark, and then all the other combustibles in that garbage can are like the tinderbox. And so I'm washing some
yikes.
some dishes, I'm washing some glassware, and I actually feel heat, and I turn around and there's a big fire
Oh
in the
God.
garbage can. And this is like a garbage can, like one of those big round steel, like Oscar the Grouch type garbage cans. And for whatever reason, the fight or flight response was to just drag the garbage can by the handle out of the building. Um, in retrospect, the proper thing would the proper thing to do would have been to go grab the fire extinguisher and use that. But it was just like I wasn't even thinking; I was just acting just right away. So I dragged this garbage can out of the room and really quickly. And then when the door closes and I'm outside with this, the exit leads directly outside into the parking lot. So I'm outside at this point. The door closes, and I quickly realize that my keys and my phone are locked inside.
Oh
And,
no.
and by the way, it's a holiday, so there's nobody else in the building. And I have this,
Oh no.
yeah, I have this garbage can with fire in it, with no phone to contact anybody. I can't like get in my car and drive real quick anywhere because I don't have my keys, and there's nobody around. And so
Oh man.
long story short, I flagged down a passerby, used his phone to call 911. They had like few fire trucks surrounding the building. And then eventually it was like me and three firefighters just went in there. Luckily, like they're the people who manage this building are pretty smart. They have a box at the entrance of their building that the fire department has the key to open, which has keys to the building, so the fire department can get in without damaging the door. Right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, so they went in, and I'm in there with them. There's like three like fully like all 80 pounds of whatever crap they have to carry on them
Oh man.
firemen, and I'm running toward the lab, and they're walking slowly and scanning because they don't. That's just how they're trained. They're trained not to go rushing into somewhere. They just walk slowly and take their time. And we go in there and look at it, and luckily there was no fire. I thought like on my way out maybe some fire had spilled out, but luckily like there was no fire in there. So the
God.
weird thing about that though was that like I said, it didn't harm me physically. I didn't get burned or anything, but the emotional aspect of it was crazy because I'm usually not a very feelsy kind of guy. Like I especially don't get emotional about anything at work. And then one of the firemen looked at me when we were in there when we finally confirmed that the building was safe. He looked at me and he goes, "Good job, you saved the building." And at that point, the floodgates opened. The tears just started flowing out. And luckily, the fire lieutenant like stayed with me and talked to me long enough to like let the adrenaline sort of come down before he left. And yeah, that was my worst accident.
Well, I mean, I think it's understandable that that would be kind of traumatizing. I mean, my God, that would terrify the hell out of me. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird. I mean, the funny thing is I didn't get fired over it. Like, my
You have a cool boss, damn it.
well, I mean, and I was a pretty, I was a pretty damn good employee too. Like it was a very small company, and I basically like ran the lab with a couple of interns under me. That was it. It was like me, and then like a revolving door of interns under me, and we kept the lab operations going. And not just the lab. I mean, we handled, when you're working for a startup, you need to wear so many hats. I was doing like shipping and receiving stuff. I was ordering things like, where I work now, there's like whole departments that, all they do is shipping and receiving, and all they do is like ordering and processing. But back then, like we had to do all of it. And man, it was crazy.
Sounds like an interesting job, though.
Yeah, it was a one of a kind job.
Yeah, I've had a couple of jobs that I really enjoyed where I've worked for mostly I've done contract work ever since about 2011. When I got out of school, I started working for a clinical lab, and did that for 4.5 years, where I was mostly doing HPLC, using FID detection. We were also using PD detectors, or PDA rather, photodiode array. And that's where I got my training on, all of my work with chromatography. I learned at this school, at this particular job. That's where I learned how to work with HPLC and UPLC and GCMS and all of that good stuff. After that company downsized because of the economic unpleasantness after 2008, they laid a lot of people off, and I happened to be one of them. And then ever since then, I've been doing contract work right up until September of 2019, where not too long after that, we had COVID start up, and it became very hard to find any lab contract jobs in this area, which is how I ended up teaching at the local community college. I was teaching chem lab up there for 2 semesters last year. I finally quit after 2 semesters because it was so fucked up. Holy shit, man. So many people there were trying to tell me just rules about things that didn't make any sense. The like, you can't transport sulfuric acid from home. Why not? Why? You can buy it by the gallon at the hardware store. Why not? I wanted to bring in uranium salt samples for my students so that, make the Geiger counter go beep. They told me not to do that. I wanted to bring in stuff to make up a reagent test. My contemporary chemistry class, the non-science majors, their last lab was the synthesis of aspirin using acetic anhydride, and the textbook told them to confirm it with TLC, but they didn't have time to because it was COVID. So their lab time had been cut in half. So I suggested, hey, let's just use a reagent test. If you go onto my website, poormanschemist.com, and you go to the home chemist grimoire section where I keep all of my little recipe book of preps, you can see there are several reagents there that will test for aspirin. I know I used aspirin as just like a kind of standard test compound, along with 14 others, and all the results are on there. So I was just like, well, look, I'll just make up some reagent tests for them. Oh, no, you can't do that. Well, okay, here's the formulas for the reagent test. Nothing on here is all that exotic. Can you make it up? Oh, we don't have any of that stuff. You're telling me that you don't have, like, I think it was Lieberman's reagent was potassium or sodium nitrite and sulfuric acid, if memory serves. Like, it was just so ridiculous, man. I'm like, another one is I think sulfuric acid and formaldehyde. I have a hard time believing a college lab does not like that they don't have something like that in their inventory. And every time I tried to, like, well, look, I can make it up at home and I can bring it in. All they got to do is just spot it and see if it changes colors. Nope. It was like every time I tried to do anything to go above and beyond and do extra for them, anything, I was continually shot down to the point where I was like, the hell with this. I'm just sick of it. I can't teach my students, and because COVID's going on, I couldn't even have office hours. It was a fucking joke. So, I gave my notice in plenty of time. I finished out the second semester, and now I'm looking for another lab contract that doesn't involve me moving out of the state.
Have you, it's funny. I just thought of something funny. What if there's like a profile on you on like one of these websites that students rate their professors? Have you ever looked that up to see if there's one on you?
I've never looked it up. I heard somebody talking about Rate My Professor. My students loved me. I mean, I can say that pretty confidently. I never really got any bad reviews from anybody. People found me. See, I use profanity. I just not quite the profanity I use on my channel. I use it as a teaching tool. And this is a valid teaching tool. I mean, the college recognizes and understands this because it breaks the ice and it makes you seem like you're more approachable. It makes you more relatable.
Yeah, I think
And I
that's
heard,
why. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's
no,
why
no,
like
no, go ahead.
Tony Robbins uses profanity for that purpose too. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's very effective. And I would just be there for them. If they needed to talk to me, that was totally fine. I was always there for them. Everybody said they loved my class. And, when they, like the students in, get this, the non-science majors got 12 labs in a semester, right? The science majors got 4. It was unreal. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. None of it made any goddamn sense, dude.
That seems ass
None.
backwards, man.
It was. Everything about it was. Um I totally sympathize with them, and I told them flat out. I just told them, I stood in front of the class and I'm like, you got ripped off. I'm like, did they give you a discount? Oh, yeah, we didn't have to pay quite as much. I'm like, well, that's interesting because you're getting like not even half of the lab time that you're like the in-tat lab time you're supposed to get. They're shifting so much of it to doing it online, chemistry lab
Yeah,
online.
that's ridiculous. Like, hey, click the beaker
Yeah.
to add some sodium chloride solution. It's like, no,
Oh
come on,
God,
get the fuck
yes.
out of here with that. Like, that's not
Right,
even close to being an acceptable substitute for the real thing. Like, it's just not. It's just simply not. Come on, like.
right. Well, and they've made everything so lame. I think my students, the worst thing they worked with was copper sulfate pentahydrate. It's You have to use some of the more dangerous chems, I think personally, because it demythologizes them. It lets people work with them, right? It lets them become more familiar with them. But these days, man, the curriculum is it's so lame. It is so pussified that they don't work with anything like that. They don't even get to see mercury. They don't make a uranyl compound or a mercuric salt or an arsenite or anything like that. It's just boring shit. Make calcium carbonate. That's fucking gay. And that's coming from a dude that sleeps with dudes voluntarily. All right? I know gayness when I see it, and I'm telling you, that is bona fide fucking gay. Sorry, I figured your monetization was already long gone.
Yeah, it's probably gone already, dude. Fuck it.
Well, hey, by the rules of modern society, see, I belong to that group, so I'm allowed to criticize it. That's
Nah,
how
you're
it
you're
works,
good. You're
right?
good. No, yeah, you're good. I don't I don't
No, it's
I don't ever put a muzzle on any of my guests when I do these calls, so it's all good.
um, but yeah, well, I don't know. What's your next question?
Nothing. I was just, trying to sort of, you know, think about what you're talking about how like the lab curriculum stuff like that. I kind of go back and I think about my own experiences, with the lab component of the lectures that I was taking. And I don't think I ever got into anything like really interesting until I think some of the organic labs were pretty interesting, especially the one where you make isopentyl acetate. It smells really great. Um, and then But I think the really interesting ones didn't really come around until I was taking like inorganic lab and physical chemistry lab. I had a crazy experience in physical chemistry lab. The lab coordinator was like a hard ass. He was like the Gordon. He was like the Gordon Ramsay of labs. Like he was like
Oh
super hard.
no.
Let me just tell you how this would go. Like you have a partner. You are assigned a partner at random. You don't choose your partner. Random chance chooses your partner, and
Right.
you are with that partner the entire semester. So you just have to hope by the grace of the Lord above that you got a good one, because you'll be working together to try to understand every single aspect of the experiment that you're about to
Oh
perform.
no.
And before you even like get out any glass or anything, you go to this lab coordinator, this Gordon Ramsay type character, and he asks you questions. He gives you an oral quiz. And if you fail that quiz, if he doesn't think that you know enough about the experiment you're about to do, then you are deemed a safety hazard. You do not get to perform the experiment, and you get a zero for that day.
Whoa. That's nuts.
And it
That is
actually happened. Like
crazy.
I saw people like get sent home, and like I saw tears, man. Like this was like a reality TV show where you're facing elimination every single week, and it was intense.
Wow, that's crazy. I've never seen anything like that. We started working with fun stuff and qualitative analysis, which I took between general chem and organic chem. We worked with cyanide in there and hydrogen sulfide. So that was where I became acquainted with those compounds. Um, After that, though, it's been kind of tame. Although it was interesting at that college that I went to, where I got my associate's degree, on the lab bench, but at every bench they had concentrated nitric, concentrated sulfuric, and they had glycerin. All three of them sitting right next to each other for God knows why. Because that's, you needed some dumb jock to come in there and mix those together and make nitroglycerin. Um, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it sounds like they were just baiting that. They were just asking for it.
right. So I mean, they did some pretty good stuff. These days, though, like I said, it's so watered down and it's so lame. Um, I really wish that you use some lanthanides if you're so concerned about safety. Lanthanides, especially the early ones, are essentially non-toxic-ish. I mean, you don't really need to take any extreme precautions with them. They're reasonably inexpensive. You can do all kinds of cool chemistry with them and demonstrate all kinds of concepts, and they're actually colorful. And they're from a part of the periodic table people never see. I mean, that's like gold for engagement in a classroom setting.
Yeah, I mean, you get an opportunity to work at that mysterious F block that's down below for reasons that only someone with a understanding of general chemistry would understand.
Right. And I mean, and the lanthanides, they will precipitate, like there's hydroxides precipitate. I think their sulfates have inverse solubilities. You could demo it with that. I know thorium definitely, thorium sulfate definitely does. I mean, there are so many different things that you could just precipitate out where you could demonstrate so many different principles. And it would be interesting. It would be exotic. It'd be something that would catch people's eye. You may not get a huge number of people to be thoroughly interested, but over time, you'll be reaching a lot of people.
What is your current day job?
Now I do what I call the shit job, which is to drive DoorDash. That
Oh,
fuck
okay.
my life. I do it up here in Anderson, and I can make extra money. I mean, I can make anything from like 60 to $100 when I go out there and I drive. But I mean, you have to think about that. There's the cost of gas, which it's slowly edging down a little bit. It's like my car needs another oil change. That's going to be expensive. There's so much cost associated with it that at the end of the day, if you made $100, you spent 20 in gas. So you hadn't really made $100, you made 80. And a lot of days it can be slow and you just won't make as much money that day. What I really like to do, and one reason that I'm not, clinically depressed doing this, is because it does allow me the freedom to juggle my schedule around kind of how I want it to be so that I can keep doing the YouTube, BitChute, and Odyssey channels, and keep them going. And I would really, really like to start up a tutoring business too. I really would like to do that. Since I taught that chemistry lab class for a year, and so much of it is done online, they have these grueling, godforsaken worksheets. I figured, hey, I'm not going to give away the answers. I'd be cutting my own throat. But, a reasonable amount of money, I will, sit down with you. We will go through it. We will make sure you understand it. You prep for the exams. I really like to start doing something like that too, because I honestly think that there is a market for it. Especially if I have if my students put me on this rate my professor stuff, that could work out well. I figure I'm just gonna wait until the semester starts up there, and then I'm gonna walk around to all the rooms, figure out when all the chemistry labs happen, and then go back right before class starts and just be like, "Hey, y'all want some private tutoring on the side? Here you go. Have a business card." Try to set up something that way, man. Why not? I'd much rather work for myself than somebody else.
Oh yeah, I hear you, man. Would you ever consider doing some kind of online thing where you Skype, you tutor people over Skype or Discord or something like that?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and it's something, like I would kind of like to expand into doing something like that. Um, it's harder to do because, of course, you're not sitting there with a person. So even just drawing a simple diagram is more of a production. But yes, eventually I would like to do that because I'm already doing so much instruction now on my channel. I'm teaching everybody organic chemistry. Um, it's just the logical extension is to do online tutoring and chem for people.
Yeah, and listen, if you ever get that up and running, there's definitely some logistical hurdles to overcome. Like for instance, I use one of these tablets right here to do my freehand drawing. There's a pen that comes with it. This one's pretty antiquated. I got it a long time ago, but it's tried and true. Comes with this little pen, and it just hooks up via USB, and you can write freehanded on your screen. Um, but yeah, if and when you get that going, I mean, I'd love to help, promote it. I mean, I know I don't have much of an audience
Same.
nowadays, but yeah, I'll definitely try to send some people over to it if you get it going.
I appreciate that, man. Like I said, whenever you're trying to start your own business, you expect to work your ass off. But I really think it has potential. Clearly people are liking the organic chemistry series. When I asked them if they liked it, I keep getting positive feedback about it. I I don't know. I've had a lot of people say they like my teaching style too. So, anything's possible. It's just I think it's comes down to how much hard work you're willing to put into it. If you want it bad enough, then you'll do the work necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It really does come down to that. I imagine your expenses probably aren't like super high either. It looks you seem like a kind of guy who can like do a lot with a little, like not just with chemicals, but in everything.
Well, yes, to an extent. I do try to be inventive and try to solve problems creatively when I can. But I am very limited by, just basically by my budget. Um, really limits what I can do. But yes, if there is a possibility where I can MacGyver some shit, I absolutely will.
All right. Well, I think I've pretty much exhausted any questions that I have. Do you have anything
All
else
right.
that you want to say to the audience before you wrap things up here?
Nothing else except guys, come on over, check me out over on my channel. I love to do all kinds of weird shit. If weird shit is what you like to see, I'm your guy. So hope to see you over there, man.
Yeah,
All
and
right, buddy.
I will put all the links where you can follow Poor Man's Chemist, where you can support Poor Man's Chemist. I understand he's on Subscribe Star and things like that. So all of those links will
And
be down there in the description. Trust me, if you can get past the politics, depending on whether or not you agree with them, you will love Poor Man's Chemist channel. And he's just
it's,
so he's real, he's authentic, he's funny, he's a character, and all those things just sort of come together to produce a unique internet personality to the point where it was just a few days ago that I found your channel. I'm like, I absolutely must have a conversation with you. So thank you very much for obliging me. And I hope we can keep in touch and maybe do it again sometime. Once there's been enough time for new things to happen, right?
right. No, I would love that, man. This has been great. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
You bet. All right, take care, everybody.
All right, see you later, peeps.